Hey, what's going on, Dave? And how you been doing this week?
Most excellent, Joe. How are you doing this week, sir?
I'm been kind of up and down.
Mhm.
We've had some things going on, so it's been a good week. Just because we got some progress made. So for that reason, I'll say it's a good week. What about you? How do you feel about this past week?
Yeah, we've had some hits and misses, but that's to be expected. But overall, a good week. And here we are again with our listeners and viewers on another podcast of.
Journeys of Not So Ordinary People. So thanks for queuing us up because I started going down the wrong path with this. But yeah, so thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. And so this week, we wanted to talk a little bit about having no regrets. And what do I mean by that? So, I'll go back to my story, which I often refer to, where this all started for me. And it was, 2005 when I was thinking about what type of legacy was I going to leave? I get to my retirement age, I'm going to walk away with a couple of pensions, but is that going to be it? Am I going to be satisfied with that? That all I did was remain that average Joe. I adhered to all the rules and regulations that everybody put before me, took care of my family, but was that going to be it? So at that time, I was doing that critical self-reflection for myself, and I realized, yeah, I do want more. I want to achieve more. And so I didn't want to have any regrets. And that was one of the decisions, or one of the reasons why I went back to school, was that I didn't have any regrets. So the only regret that I really have, to this point, is the fact that when I was a young boy, playing basketball, ate, slept, basketball 24/7. And for me back then, I was actually a pretty good basketball player, but didn't know it, didn't realize it, and didn't have the confidence. So that is really the one regret that I do have. And so up to the age of 40, I reflected on that a lot. And it was at that time in 2005 when I said, you know what, I'm no longer going to have regrets. And that's how, me and Dave have talked about this before, but that was one of the main reasons I was able to get to where I am today, because we talk about when not having regrets, but what goes along with that is you have to be willing to go all in and,
Mhm.
and to walk away, with a doctorate degree, not realizing at the time um, that I was going to end up at that point, but going all in, even when I just started working on my associate's degree, that's what got me to completing the doctorate degree, was because I was not going to leave it on the table. I had to, everything that I had went into that. And fortunate enough, I was able to make it to that level or to that point. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction into having no regrets. And so that's the introduction. Dave, what are your thoughts on having no regrets?
Joe, this is a great topic that you bring up. To me, it ignites a few things in my mind. Like what type of positive mark are we leaving? To your point, a legacy. Whether it's with a job, whether it's with our children, our grandchildren, our peers, our colleagues, our friends. What are we doing to leave that positive mark? Being all in, leaving it all on the table, like you said. Um, you know, Not doing things half-assed or
Right.
taking a half-assed approach towards things, doing just being status quo. What are we doing to really embrace the moment and go above and beyond all the time? And that doesn't mean that you have to exert a tremendous amount of effort and neglect things. It just means really being present in that moment and being the best you can be while you're there. You know, Kind of like, we can kind of broach this into different areas like leadership and communication and motivation and, goal setting and that sort of thing. But what are we really doing to be present. And like communication, being a listener and receiving the message and not talking and interrupting people like I tend to do. It's not that I'm not listening. Please don't take that the wrong way, but but being present in the moment and not just hearing what the person's saying, but listening to what they're saying. So that's where my mind goes. You had said something when we were prepping for this particular podcast, and you said being unapologetic,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to, a great frame of reference, being unapologetic for what you did because you did leave it all on the table. Um, I remember one time when I was working for a company and I was part of a volunteer group of individuals that was, it was a leadership group, and we were mentoring each other and coaching each other. And, you know, just being in that moment. And one of the questions I was asked was, you know, I'd broken my leg or something like that at the time, and I was on medical leave, and I remember one of the leaders asking me, "Dave, have you done everything you can while you're out on medical leave to help this volunteer group?" And I was like, part of me was thinking yes, and part of me was thinking no. I mean, technically, I wasn't supposed to be doing any work related stuff because I was on
Right.
medical leave. So no, I didn't really do everything I could. But did I do everything I could under the circumstances? And the answer is yes, because I was reaching out to peers and colleagues and giving them advice and participating as much as I could on a limited basis. So again, no regrets. I'm good with my conscience that I did everything I could in that moment. Now, there's
Right.
times in our careers when I'm sure almost everyone out there can attest to this, that they think back and go, yeah, I could have pushed myself a little bit more. I could have done a little bit more. I
Right.
could have done a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? For the most part, I don't have any regrets. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I'm sure we could all find some, but that's not what this conversation is
Right.
about.
Right.
This conversation is about being all in and in the moment. And I think back to some of the training I've created or the guidebooks that I've created. Some of these things I didn't do for myself, I did them for other people. Even in the business or the jobs that I've had, those tasks may not have been asked of me, but when I presented them, they were very well received because they did things that, instead of taking 3 months to onboard a new employee, it's only taking 3 weeks. That's a significant savings of time, and it's a better experience for the new employees. Um, I can go back to high school, when I fell in love with art. So I'm
Right.
going to back
Right.
up to grade school. You went to grade school. I'm going to go to grade school. So I took my first art class when I was in like the seventh or eighth grade, and the teacher wrote on one of the pieces that I was the most proud of, like D minus or D plus. You'll never amount to anything as an artist. Go back to your other classes type thing. And I was just like, wow, that's not feedback you want to provide to a young mind.
No,
so
not at all.
so several years later, that was seventh or eighth grade. So in like my 11th or 12th grade of high school, I think it was 11th grade, I took a drawing class and I actually did well. And I received a lot of positive encouragement and feedback. And I did a painting my senior year in high school that looked like a photograph. And I did. I won a
Right.
scholarship I would have paid for my first year of school. And I left it all on the table with that. To your point, I was, waking up doing this painting and I was going to bed at night doing that painting. That's all I was thinking about. And it showed when I produced that final piece of work, it showed. And just like in the books that we've written, we left it all out there. Were they perfect? No, they weren't perfect. But we put it all out there. We left it all out there on the table. And it's just it gets to the point of, if you're going to do something, do the best you absolutely can, because if you're not going to do the best you're going to do, why are you doing it?
Right.
you know
Right. So
so
Dave,
good.
you bring up, I think we both did the same thing. We touched on, that maybe those regrets we had back when we were younger. And so I'm just curious, not necessarily for you, because I believe we're kind of on the same page, but I'm just thinking of our viewers and our listeners. When they start to really think about having no regrets, I'm just wondering or curious if it's probably related to something just like what we just talked about, something that happened to us at a very young age, that really impacted us for most of our lives, and we didn't even realize it. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if people, as they think about it, whatever it was that they were passionate about back then, and maybe put it aside, or didn't finish it, didn't complete it, didn't have the confidence, whatever their case may be, if that drove their journey, and
Mhm.
now, and later in life they're thinking, you know what, um I regret I didn't pursue that, or I regret that I didn't do that, and now their mindset is to, when I do things, that I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Because I believe, for me, that has been a motivator for me. It's just the idea that, finding out much later in life that I could have been potentially made it to, a pro league, if I would have really had confidence in myself, and continue to pursue that path. And so I'm, my opinion, I do believe a lot of people, that's what, in some cases, their motivator is that thing that they gave up on, or didn't pursue, um, so that they have that regret, and don't want to have other regrets. So I
Mhm.
would imagine, if we ask people, that would probably be, uh, probably the same thing for them, or something very similar to them, that's now a motivator, so that
Mhm.
they don't walk away, and with that same feeling, of disappointment in themselves, that, like I said, I did not want to feel that again.
Yeah.
And even in my book, that's one of the things I wrote about, was, dreams. And that's really what it comes down to, is that dream. You love painting, or not painting, but art, and I
Yeah.
love basketball, and to put those things aside, and to know that you potentially could have been much greater, but now you put them to the side. And for me, there's no way I can go to the pros now at my age or my body, but just to think back, how like, doing that critical self-reflection always, and that will just always stick in my head, that I could have been, um, something different. And the journey that I've taken to this point, I had to take. I
Yeah.
mean, but so, I could always go back and say woulda, shoulda, coulda, but that's what I'm trying to prevent for the future. Now,
Right.
when things, are presented to me, or things are in front of me, then I go, like you say, all in. I want it to be the best version of whatever it's supposed to be. So that is the difference, and that was the motivation for me to get me to this point, to become a doctor, to be a senior leader in the military, to be an author, all these things, is because, like you said, if you're not going to go big, then go home. And
Mhm.
that's been my mantra for, a lot of
You know,
years now.
with what you're saying, I'm having kind of like a critical self-reflection moment, and I start thinking about, okay, in school, I did not do well academically, but when I went
Right.
to college, to your point, maybe some of those things that we felt a little remiss about, that we didn't
Hmm.
go all in for whatever reason at that time, that was probably a very strong motivator for me making sure I did
Yep.
well in college. And not just stopping with a bachelor's degree, not just stopping with a master's degree, but going the full distance,
Yep.
going all the way, going to the pros in education, if you will,
Right.
and getting that
Right.
doctorate.
Yeah.
Um, and the same with my military career. And I'm sure you'll have points like this too. Starting out, you're young, and maybe you're not the perfect airman or soldier or troop, but then you find your way, and then you start going, all in on things, and you get
Yep.
those awards, and you get those achievements and the recognitions. And I think that, to your point, maybe those things where we didn't go all in at that time, and later in life when we mature and grow up and start really realizing what we want to do when we grow up, or at least some of the things that we want to be when we
Hmm.
grow up, we start putting in a full effort, because we realize there isn't really a point. If you're not going to do something well, why do
Right.
it?
Right.
And if you're going to do it well, if you're going to do something and do it well, do it really well so you feel proud and you have that sense of
Right.
accomplishment and leaving it all on the table, being all in, no stone unturned type thing. you know that positive self affirmation that you did what you sought to do.
Right.
And maybe it didn't, to our experiences, like we've talked about many times, maybe it wasn't the most direct route. For Joe and I, we like to
Right. Right.
point A to point B, and Joe and I go point A, point B.
Right.
We take
Right.
that long
Right.
and scenic route, but we get there. And that's really the point, going all in and to, go back to some of our previous podcasts, not overthinking shit, motivation,
Right.
really
Right.
what's driving us to get there and to stay that course and see it to the end and not quitting.
Right.
That's that no regrets piece. I
Yep.
went all in, I gave it my all, I feel good about what I did, whether I got to 100,000% versus just 1,000% versus 100%, you know, whatever, but I gave it my
Right.
all.
Right.
So
You're right. I think, just me even walking through that exercise, I think it was a huge motivator, and along the lines of what you said. We gave up on ourselves to a degree, back then, and we probably, you remember it just as as easy as I do. How much that impacted us, and that was again one of those hidden motivators. We
mhm.
talked about motivation back a couple of episodes ago, like you said, and I think this is one of those things that help with that motivation piece for us to get to that, to the like you say, the pros of education. And I think that's present in a lot of people. And so, as we get close to the end of this, I would just encourage people, like me and Dave have done, is to maybe go back and think about, and it's probably going to be something in your childhood or early stages or ages of your life, that you're going to think about that thing that you wish you would have pursued, or that thing that you wish you would have done better or gave it your all. Um, think about today, if you're facing something, education, a degree, certifications, whatever it is, new jobs. Just think about what you were good at as a kid, and how much time and energy you put into it, and then walked away from it. But just think about where you could have been if you would have continued to, to apply yourself and give it your all. Like Dave said, that 1,000%. Where would you be today, or imagine where you could be today if you would have followed that path? And then now think about where you could be if you use that same drive, that same energy, that same passion you had for whatever that thing was for you back in the day. Now applying that same intensity to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish today. And like me and Dave both said, it's kind of a light bulb went off in our head when we started discussing this. And it does, for me, it does reflect back to that time when I would get up at crack of dawn and take a basketball. I was telling Dave earlier, I'd walk a mile and a half to a store, dribbling the entire way and dribble back. Um, that type of motivation and that passion for that sport, uh, it was the same for when I went back to school. So that's what for people out there, like I said, that are listening to us or watching this, I just recommend or encourage you to just go back, think back in time, when whatever that thing was that you were so passionate about, that you would do it in your sleep, if you could. Think about that as you think about whatever that next thing is for you, and apply that energy. you know I think you'd be really surprised at what you could accomplish by doing that. So you have any follow-up comments, Dave?
I do, Joe. You're really making me think today, and I hope I'm not going to set off the fire alarm or the smoke detector. Three words: intensity, commitment, and focus. Those are the three words that come to mind. And whether maybe you're a younger viewer, or maybe you're in your teens, your 20s or 30s, or 40s or 50s, because that's considered young these days. Maybe you've gotten to that point in your life, or maybe you're just starting out, or maybe you're restarting your life, or starting over because of a job situation, or maybe you're just not sure. At any age this can happen. Not sure what you want to do next, do now, do tomorrow. Maybe you haven't really put that much thought into it, but whatever you decide to do, give it your all. Instead of just doing it, give it your all. And I say that because technology has enabled us to communicate and share and put things out there a lot faster. And sometimes people are just doing it for that fast buck or that quick recognition, or to check that box. Even at work, we do it sometimes. We just go through things and just check that box to say, we've got these 25 things done today. But did you give it your all when you did those things? Were you really in that moment? Were you focused? Were you really just all in and committed to doing that? Whether it's checking the email, writing up a report, whatever, some of the mundane things, but just being all in that moment is what I'm going to throw out there. Even if it's self-reflection, because you don't know what you want to do tomorrow or today, just go all in. Don't have any regrets and go, man, I really should have thought about that a little bit more
Right.
quickly before I sent all that money to that preacher. That's a
Right.
reference from the 80s, and in the 90s. And, there's things that we think about, we're like, wow, I really didn't think that through well enough, or I didn't really commit the way I should have. So I'm going to wrap up my piece and say, just focus, commit, and just be all in. Whatever you do, be the best you can be at what you do.
Yep. So thanks for that, Dave. And just my final comment is, we don't want to have regrets. And so, like you said, all in is when you sit back, or when it's your time to go, it's all about, when you walk away, are you happy with what you accomplished, what you did, what type of legacy that you left for your family, for those around you. And if you're happy with that, then you've done it. You have no regrets. So we want to thank you for tuning in today. Like Dave said, this one kind of got us both thinking and scratching our heads a little bit. But I just encourage you all again to think about, when you're going to do something, or you're thinking about doing something, just reflect on giving it your all, and see what the outcome is. And I can almost guarantee you that you feel, you'll feel it. You'll know that at the end of the day, you walk away that you gave it your all. So I want to thank you again for tuning in or listening to our Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. And so until next time, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.